Hello students, so this is the last part of the lecture where we will be seeing the 3D models here. Now you see this is the entire vertebral column seen from the anterior view, from the right lateral view. You can see the cervical region is colored in white without any color. This yellowish green color shows the thoracic region with the 12 thoracic vertebrae. These were the 7 cervical vertebrae. In purple are the 5 lumbar vertebrae, and here is the in blue is the sacrum, and in green is the coccyx. Now look at the curvatures of the spine. The cervical region has a convexity forward, the thoracic region has a concavity forward, the lumbar region has a convexity forward, and the sacrum and the coccygeal again have a concavity forward. Now, in a newborn child and in a fetus and in a newborn child, the vertebral column is completely concave forward. That is called as the primary curvature. So, any curvature with its concavity directed anteriorly is a primary curvature. These convex forward curvatures, these are secondary curvatures and they develop later on. First, this develops, the convex forward cervical curvature develops when the child starts supporting his head, and later at the age of after the age of 1 year, when he starts trying to walk and supporting his body weight uh, on his lower limbs, then the weight of the trunk starts coming on the lower part of the vertebral column, and hence the secondary curvature of the lumbar spine develops, right? So the thoracic spine and the sacrococcygeal spine, they retain their primary curvatures, which are concave forward, whereas the cervical uh, spine and the lumbar spine, they develop secondary curvatures which are convex forward because of supporting the head and because of the erect posture. Right. Now, the primary curvatures which are concave forward, they are chiefly due to the shape of the body of the vertebra, in which the anterior height of the body is slightly less than the posterior height of the body of the vertebra. Right. Whereas the secondary curvatures, they are chiefly because of the nature of the intervertebral discs, where even though it is not quite prominent in this particular model, but the anterior height of the intervertebral disc is greater than the posterior height. That is the chief reason for the presence of the secondary curvature, even though the vertebral body is also slightly taller anteriorly and slightly shorter posteriorly. This is most prominent in case of the fifth lumbar vertebra, which is the atypical lumbar vertebra. In this one, the anterior height is much greater than the posterior height. Right. So this is all about the curvatures and what contributes to the curvatures. Another thing is that 4/5 of the length of the vertebral column is because of the bony part, that is the vertebrae. 1/5 of the entire length of the vertebral column is contributed to by the intervertebral discs. Right. Now I will just want to show you the ligaments, the ligamenta flava, and the direction of lumbar puncture. If I just show the lumbar and sacral spines, and if we zoom in and add certain ligaments, right? Here you see this is the supraspinous ligament. This one, oh, I removed it. We'll disable the scalpel feature. Now this is the supraspinous ligament. This one, these are the interspinous ligaments, and the ones you see in this faded yellow color. These are the ligamenta flava. This is the ligamentum flavum. So we have to go through. If we put the lumbar puncture needle, where will we put it? This is L5, L4. Usually we put it between L3 and L4. And how is this level decided? By the intercrystal plane, or the highest points of the iliac crest. They roughly lie at this level. So, what will the lumbar puncture needle pass through? It will pass through the skin and the superficial fascia, then the supraspinous ligament and the interspinous ligament, if we are going exactly in the midline, which is where we go mostly, and then it passes through the central or the paracentral part of the ligamentum flavum. And then if we look from above, after the ligamentum flavum, oh, we have also added the Here we see the anterior longitudinal ligament. This is the posterior longitudinal ligament. Now, if I remove these posterior longitudinal and anterior longitudinal ligament and the supraspinous ligament as well, then we will be able to see. Now you are looking at the vertebral canal, which contains the spinal cord. If I just try to add the nerves here, yes, uh, don't focus on these. This is the sympathetic chain and other nerves. Focus on this thing. And if I also try to add the spinal cord, this is the spinal cord along with its coverings. See, right? So spinal cord is present in the lumen of, you can see it is ending somewhere here. If I go below and the ligamenta flava have been removed here, spinal cord ends, you can see it is narrowing down and now it has ended. There is no spinal cord here. The spinal cord is here. If I make the vertebra transparent, you will be able to see, yes, the spinal cord has ended at the lower border of L1 vertebra, whereas the roots of this of these lumbar spinal nerves, sacral spinal nerves, and coccygeal spinal nerves, they are still going down, and because they are going to emerge only below their respective vertebra. This is the L1 spinal nerve. Look at where the root is arising from. This is the L1 segment of spinal cord. Segment means to which the roots of that particular spinal nerve are attached. So the first lumbar spinal nerve roots are attached to this part of spinal cord. So this is the L1 segment of spinal cord. But the L1 segment's roots, they have to descend down and emerge through the intervertebral foramen between the pedicle of L1 vertebra and the pedicle of L2 vertebra, right? Decreasing again, making this L1 vertebra opaque. Now we can see that if I give this L1 nerve a green color, be able to see. Let me check which one is the L1. This is spinal nerve L1, so we will give it a green color, right? So we can see that it is arising from the spinal cord at a higher level, but it is emerging from the spinal cord at the level of intervertebral foramen between the L1 vertebra. This is L1 and this is L2 vertebra. Okay, here the intervertebral foramen, the size of the intervertebral foramen has been shown very large. It is not so large, it is comparatively smaller. Now you can see why a prolapse of the intervertebral disc, if it prolapses posterolaterally, it is going to compress the spinal nerve emerging from it. Again, this intervertebral foramen is very small, and intervertebral disc, if it protrudes, it presses on the spinal nerve emerging through this intervertebral foramen. That is the cause of the sensory and motor changes in the area of supply of that particular spinal nerve. For example, if L4, L5 nerves are involved, that will lead to sciatica or pain in the region of supply of sciatic nerve, which will be over the back of thigh and on the leg, right? So that is about the and why do we do lumbar puncture at the level of between L3 and L4? Because spinal cord has already ended. There is no spinal cord at this level. You can see that there are only roots of spinal nerves, the lower spinal nerves, lower lumbar, and all the sacral and coccygeal spinal nerves. So if we insert a needle here, the needle, because these roots are not fixed, they can move around, so the needle is not going to pierce any root. It is just going to push the roots away, so that we just enter the epidural space, or if we pierce even the dura and arachnoid, then we enter the subarachnoid space, so we can give the epidural anesthesia or the spinal anesthesia. Basically, just by injecting a local anesthetic here, we are going to anesthetize all these spinal nerves, their roots, right? Then okay, then I will just show you all the muscular attachments. We have already covered the muscle attachments, but we will just revise those muscle attachments here, right? So here you see, now you are not seeing the lumbar vertebrae completely, but you are seeing the structures attached to them. So lumbar vertebrae are still in the purple color. So first of all, we are seeing this blue colored muscle is the diaphragm. So if we have a look, this is the right crus of diaphragm, this is the left crus. It is only shown, uh, actually this one is correct. This should be shown as longer because this is attached to L1, L2 and L3 as well. The left crus is attached only to L1 and L2. Right, and if I show you from the posterolateral aspect, you can see this is the 12th rib, this is the 11th rib. If I zoom in, you can see, just click on this thing. Yes, so this is the 12th rib, this is the 11th rib. They do have small cartilages in front of them. They have not been shown, but they are floating ribs because they do not articulate with the costal cartilage of the rib lying above them. So what is attached to the 12th rib? So here in the lateral part, superiorly, there is attachment of the diaphragm, right? Whereas on the lower border, medially, there is attachment of this muscle, which is the quadratus lumborum. Now remember, where was quadratus lumborum coming from? The posterior one third of the dorsal segment of the iliac crest, right? From the its outer lip the latissimus dorsi was coming, but from the inner lip the quadratus lumborum was coming. Where does it insert? It goes upwards and medially, its uppermost part. Now if I remove the diaphragm, then we will be able to see. Yeah, now you are able to see that it is attached on the this lower border of the 12th rib on its anterior surface in its medial part, but it also attaches on the anterior surface of transverse processes of lumbar vertebrae lateral to the vertical ridge. The medial to the vertical ridge, there is attachment of this muscle, which is the psoas major muscle. If I just remove the psoas minor, this is the psoas minor, and if I make the psoas major muscle transparent, right, okay. Now what we see is we are seeing the body of the lumbar vertebra and the transverse process of lumbar vertebra. If I just zoom in, you can see that psoas major muscle is attached where? To the medial part of anterior surface of the lumbar vertebrae, whereas quadratus lumborum, if I give a color to quadratus lumborum, we can give it a green color, right? Okay, and we can see that in this model actually it is showing just attaching to the tips of the transverse processes, but it attaches to the lateral part of anterior surface of the transverse process also, and it is covered anteriorly by the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia, which hence will attach to the vertical ridge on the anterior surface of transverse process, and it is covered posteriorly by the middle layer of thoracolumbar fascia, which hence is going to attach behind it to the tips of the transverse processes, right? Then here you can see this is the anterior longitudinal ligament. I will just remove this thing. Then we can see the attachments on the sacrum. Right now this muscle in blue color, now you guys can guess it, this E-shaped attachment. If I rotate this model and show you the gluteal region, I made the gluteus maximus muscle transparent. Now you can see this blue colored muscle emerging out from the greater sciatic foramen. So now you know which is this muscle, the piriformis muscle. And you can see these two ligaments also, which are in blue is the sacrotuberous ligament, and in green attached anteriorly to the sacrotuberous ligament are the sacrospinous ligament. So here you can see this is the lowest lateral part of the sacrum. So that lower lateral part of lower triangular part of the lateral surface of sacrum, it has attachment of three structures. Most posteriorly there is attachment of gluteus maximus, then in front of it there is attachment of sacrotuberous and sacrospinous ligaments, and anteriorly there is attachment of what? There is this triangular muscle, upper part of this triangular muscle. This is the coccygeus, or actually the ischio-coccygeus muscle, that forms the posterior most part of the floor of the pelvic cavity. So this is the coccygeus or ischio-coccygeus that is attached most anteriorly to that lower triangular part of lateral surface of sacrum. Above it, we had seen that if I remove the piriformis and these sacroiliac ligaments, here we will see that here is articulation between the ilium and the sacrum forming the sacroiliac joints, and here there is attachment of the ilio-lumbar ligaments also. If I just show you, this is the lumbosacral ligament, sorry, between the lumbar vertebra and the sacrum, and behind it, if we see from the posterior most part, after removing all these muscles, then we will see now erector spinae and multifidus. These are also parts of the multifidus, and these ligaments are extending. Here you can see it is extending from sacrum uh, to the ilium. So this is the sacral fascicle of the iliolumbar, because it is attaching, some part is attached to the ilium also, iliolumbar ligament, and this will be the ilio superior part of the iliolumbar ligament, because it is attached laterally to the ilium and to the transverse process of this L4, L3 vertebra as well. This is L4, right? Okay. And then we have already seen the sacrotuberous and the sacrospinous ligament, and this is the dorsal sacroiliac ligament. Right, these are the short fascicles, and this is the long fascicle. You do not need to remember in so much detail, but you should just visualize the muscles from where the muscle is taking origin, and you should know where the muscle is going as well, right? Okay, then we also see, if I add the external oblique muscle here, then you will see that it is attached to the this lower part of outer surface of the 12th rib from its lateral aspect, and from its upper aspect there will be attachment of the latissimus dorsi. If I just add the muscles here, you will be able to see, right? External oblique has not yet been added. There we go. So the last digitation of external oblique muscle, the fibers which almost go vertically downwards, they are attached to the 12th rib, lateral part of outer surface of 12th rib near its lower border, and it has not yet added latissimus dorsi. Yeah, it is added in the transparent green thing. So it is taking origin from the upper part of the 12th rib, one of the digitations of latissimus dorsi. In addition to, we know that it takes origin from the posterior one-third of the dorsal segment of iliac crest also. It takes origin from thoracolumbar fascia also. Some part takes origin from the sacrum also, and it takes origin from the spines of the lumbar vertebrae and the lower thoracic vertebrae as well. So one of the, it takes origin from the ribs also. So one digitation comes from the 12th rib as well, right? So to remember the attachments of bones, you should visualize the muscle. All right. Thank you.